Picture this. An engineer notices a fatal flaw in a major project slated to launch tomorrow, but instead of flagging the issue, they freeze. Their hand hovers over the keyboard and they quietly delete their warning email. That hesitation is a hardwired survival instinct. Human beings are deeply programmed to avoid social embarrassment, rejection, or professional punishment. When speaking up feels dangerous, our brains default to self-protection. Harvard organizational behavioral scientist Amy Edmondson identified this dynamic and termed it psychological safety. She defines it as a shared belief that a team environment is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. It means you can say what you think or admit a mistake without fear of negative consequences. To test the real-world impact of this concept, Google launched Project Aristotle. Researchers spent years analyzing 180 different teams across the company, trying to isolate the hidden variables that made certain groups outperform the rest. Project Aristotle proved that high-performing teams shared one specific trait: psychological safety. This single metric predicted success more accurately than individual IQ, seniority, or tenure combined. A team's output is driven primarily by how its members interact. If people perceive that taking an interpersonal risk will lead to punishment, they will disengage, and the entire team's performance suffers. Back to our engineer. They decide to speak up and flag the flaw. At this moment, the leader's immediate reaction will define the team's future culture. Down path A, the leader reacts defensively. They interrupt the engineer, dismiss the concern as a delay tactic, and immediately demand to know who is responsible for the error. This matrix illustrates the resulting team dynamics. When a leader demands high standards but offers low support, they push their team into the anxiety zone. Employees learn very quickly that honesty is dangerous. Edmondson proved how dangerous this zone can be in a study of hospital patient care teams. She looked at how different groups of nurses reported medication errors on the floor. As seen in these interview excerpts, nurses in unsafe teams deliberately kept their knowledge of drug errors to themselves. They feared being put on trial or blamed, so they stayed quiet even when patient health was on the line. In a psychologically unsafe environment, employees prioritize managing their personal image over doing good work. Misconduct and critical errors are pushed underground, where they fester and grow into systemic failures. Now consider path B. The leader listens carefully without judgment. Instead of searching for a scapegoat, they treat the flaw as a valuable catch and a systemic learning opportunity. This reaction shifts the team into the learning zone. Because the threat of punishment is removed, team members feel capable of taking the necessary risks to solve the problem together. We see this clearly in a manufacturing group Edmondson studied, known as the STAIN team. Rather than hiding their mistakes, this team proactively sought second opinions from outsiders whenever they weren't sure about a quality issue. Looking at these interview quotes, members of safe groups demonstrated an eagerness to experiment and continually challenge themselves. They ask for help and share information freely because they trust their teammates' intentions. Psychological safety provides the interpersonal foundation that allows a team to maintain exceptionally high standards. It creates the support necessary for people to reach for ambitious goals without the fear of failure shutting down their progress. This chart from McKinsey shows exactly how that balance works. 72% of respondents reported a positive team climate when their leaders frequently demonstrated both strong support and high challenge. When you combine that high degree of psychological safety with rigorous standards, you create the exact learning zone required for rapid innovation and continuous improvement. Creating this environment takes consistent effort. Psychological safety is forged in the high-pressure, everyday moments when leaders decide exactly how to respond to mistakes and dissenting opinions. Edmondson outlines 3 practices to build this baseline. First, treat every project as a series of learning milestones. This approach signals to the team that their collective input is a requirement for success, acknowledging the inherent uncertainty of the task. Second, leaders must actively acknowledge their own fallibility. Admitting when you are wrong or that you missed a detail is the fastest way to model that safe risk-taking is expected. Third, model curiosity. Ask lots of questions and solicit input directly, rather than assuming you already hold all the answers. Many organizations claim to value open communication, but the gap between a leader's espoused values and their actual observable behavior when a crisis hits is what ultimately determines a team's level of trust. People perform best where they feel safe to be honest, And that environment does not happen by accident. It is built, reinforced, and sustained by leadership every single day.